Hello and welcome to another episode of the Rare Agent Podcast, where we peel back the curtain on all things real estate and foster a community for collaboration over competition. We're your hosts, Christina and Kelly, as Jen is still having fun without us. And today in studio, we have with us Jas Takhar. He is a man of many, many hats that I can't even get through in the intro, but beyond being a real estate agent for 20 plus years, having a team of over 60 individuals, creating a podcast, a book, an academy for real estate agents, the list goes on and on. So we are very honored to have you with us today.
Well, thank you for having me. And Jen's obviously not having as much fun as us three are going to have. But before we get started, I want to...
It's wild in here.
It's about to get wild anyways. Big shout out to you two and obviously Jen, because I think we need more people doing what you guys are doing. I think Kelly and I were speaking off air for 3 seconds and she mentioned that this is, I think, episode 17, 18. Mm-hmm. I'm happy because 18 is my lucky number. Oh. No, I'm joking. It's actually 13.
Okay.
But I say that more people need to do this because we need more positivity out there. And so I've seen a lot of your guys' clips floating around on social, and it really looks like you three are having a lot of fun. So big kudos to you. And for everybody who's watching or listening, do these girls a favor, because if you don't share it, then it's not going to get out. And so take the time. You don't need to share it to 4,000 people. Just share it to the one person that you think will get inspired by today's conversation. Hopefully it's this episode, but if it's not, look back at their last, few episodes and press share, because it can go a very, very long way. So big congrats to you girls.
We always forget and don't know how to tell people to do that. So thank you, Jas, for taking care of the admin for us today. We needed that.
I will say it's like a layer to my business, and I'm building deeper connections even with my own clients, which has been really awesome. They're like, oh, I messaged a client this morning. I said, and he's probably going to listen. He's like, I said, oh, I'm suffering through withdrawals. I haven't talked to you. He's like, I feel like I talk to you all the time.
Awesome.
So I was like, oh,
that's so important, Christina, that you mentioned that, because a lot of agents specifically, and I think it spans to anybody in sales or as an entrepreneur, they always ask the question, right? Like, what's going to be the ROI? What's going to be the return of me doing this nonsense podcasting or videos? It's that.
Yeah.
Imagine as a salesperson, if you have the leverage when you're in a conversation, because the client's like, Christina, what are you talking about? I see you all the time. I always listen to you. Opposed to what most agents have to do in this business, which is work uphill to build that credibility, that authority, get that leverage. And so for anybody who's listening right now, who's maybe on the fence, I get it. You have a bunch of insecurities. You're worried about the way that you look. You're worried about the way that you sound. But if you're in business meeting with people, I have news for you. You look the way that you look and you sound the way that you sound. And when they meet you face to face, they're going to see you anyways. They're going to hear you anyway. So what I'm really trying to articulate here is you gotta now get over the fence, get started, and then kind of adjust along the way.
It's looking in the mirror though. Like, I can promise you, when those first couple episodes, I saw how I was looking and stuff. I was like, oh girl, you're going back to the gym. Yeah. And I have been going for the last 3 months, and I feel better. I feel like I look fresher. It just was like looking in the mirror, and it was like, okay, you're going to be on camera. You better start
Well, I think you took it to the next phase then. That's awesome, because you decided to make changes in other parts that are very important in your life. But I think for most people, if you look at yourself and you hear yourself and you're like, damn, I think I got the most sexiest voice. There might be something a little off with you. You know what I'm saying? There might be a little bit of narcissism.
Does anyone like their own voice?
Yeah, exactly. Right. And so I think what happens is people hear their voice, and I always bring up my business partner with this, because she has a raspy voice just by nature. It's probably since she was a child, I'm sure. But when she first heard herself on a podcast, she was like, oh my God, I sound so bad. I'm like, Laura, this is how you really sound. We hear it all the time, right? And so again, the content world, if you're not doing some type of content, I personally recommend this long form type of conversation, because you can really get to know other people when you're going for 35, 45, an hour and a half, whatever it may be, where if you're doing a 1 minute reel, you might not be able to get as much context, but start there. If you want to, forget even starting with a 1 minute reel, start with a 20-second story on Instagram that disappears in 24 hours. So like, even if you just needed to kind of get your feet wet, that might be a possible way to get started.
Yeah,
Totally.
agreed.
At the end of the day, most people forget tomorrow anyways, except for the people it actually resonates with.
It's so true, right? And like, I think we think that people are actually thinking about us, but the truth of the matter is they're never really thinking about us as much as we think that they're thinking about us.
Yeah, or it's not that serious.
It's never that serious.
Never that serious.
Like,
yeah,
I'm not thinking about you. Like, at best, you're a supporting actress in someone else's life.
100%. So,
right? Like, it just is what it is.
exactly.
As
Kelly, I do like the sound of my own
the
voice.
social, and I want to get into the social. We're going to get into the social. But for our listeners, before we get into that, let's start with where you came from and how you got here and why we need to know about what you're doing.
Well, look, there was 9 months before December 9th, there was a beautiful thing that happened. My mother and father did their thing and I was born. But that's where it all kind of began. But look, for me, I think I was one of those kids that was very, very fortunate at like 6 and 7. I realized I had something a little different, which was, in my opinion, not really being scared to speak to people.
That is a good skill as a child.
Right? Yeah. Like and my parents did really, really well in that sense, because they fostered it as I got older and nurtured it as I got older, because I barely passed high school, barely. In fact, I think they got me out of high school and past me just to get me away from.
Were you chatting in the back of the class all day?
Well, I was chatting in the front of the class. I was chatting everyone up.
Okay.
And so I knew that I kind of had that at 6 or 7. I was the kid who put up his hands at the bake sale, at the book sale, selling Christmas ornaments. I don't even really celebrate Christmas, right? Like, it was anything, now looking back, to get away from that formal setting of, I just didn't learn like that. I needed to spend more time with the teachers. I needed to do group work. I did really well in that setting. And then at 12, everything, like the light bulb really went on because I got paid. So it was really cool. You can imagine as a 12-year-old, like $5, whatever that would have been, 1992, 1993, $5 went a long way at the arcade or at the card store. So I sold newspapers. I got paid for it. I was like, this is it. I know what I'm doing for the rest of my life. I'm selling newspapers. Like, I get paid to knock on people's doors. Looking back as I do more of these podcasts and have conversations, I think what really, really helped and helps me now in my business, I was numb to the nose. I would knock on 100 doors and maybe, 18 of them or 24 of them would subscribe to the newspaper. But I never thought about all the people who said no, or all the people, if there was a dog. So I think that's where my fear of dogs have come from, is from running away from people's houses. But I just fell in love with that whole process. Then I started selling shoes, for your older listeners, not the Al Bundy type, but helping marathon runners and sprinters. So really understanding product knowledge and why that's important. Then I worked in the banking industry for a few years. And then I think the biggest jump happened from going salary to commissions was in car sales. So at the age of late 18, early 19s, I started selling cars at Acura for about 3 years, did very, very well there. But I figured that there's one more place, like there's one more rung on the ladder of sales that I really want to try at least, which is real estate, it being someone's biggest purchase and obviously being the biggest commission ticket. I want to test that out. And as they say, the rest is history. It's been 19 years now, and myself and a different business partner, we have a team of, I think, about 62, 63 agents now, a support staff of about 13 people, and we're just having a lot of fun. We're trying, we fail way more than we succeed. But as I like to say, it's those small successes that have been the real big wins in our life and in our business, for sure.
So I have to ask, as someone who's journeyed through so many different sales-focused careers, jobs, whatever you want to call them, other than the no's, what's one of the biggest lessons that you got going through those different jobs?
It's really being persistent with follow-up. I was going to continue to talk about the no's because it is so important in sales. You got to get to a place where you get numb to it. But I think if I had to pick something else is the continuous follow-up. So when I knocked on doors at 12 and someone said, look, I'm not looking at getting a newspaper now. like I was already asking, hey, do you mind if I come back in a couple of months if this changes? In real estate, this is an American stat, right? The average person before they buy, sell, or invest into real estate has to be followed up 17 times. That means you might need to follow up with somebody 34 times. Most agents maybe get to 2. Right? And so for someone like myself and yourselves and the top like 1% of the 1%, they know just get to 7 follow-ups. You've already beaten everybody else in the industry. Now you just got to have a little bit of patience because that prospect might not be ready. So to you, Kelly, I think it's the ability to consistently follow up. And you follow up and somebody might ask like, well, when do you follow up till? Until they tell you to F off or they're like, they've bought. That's it. That's the only thing. Now, I think there's a more classy way to do it in 2023. In the 70s, 80s, and 90s, you could call people and say, hey, Alex, I'm just wondering, did you want to buy a house today? Like maybe that shit worked back in those days. Now you can't do that. So you got to figure out different ways to bring value, which I think is an overused word. But for your viewers and listeners, specifically the real estate agents, try to do something different. And here's something that everyone who's watching and listening can steal from us. It's not really stealing or ripping us off if we're telling you to do it. We started a real estate concierge service 5 years ago. It revolutionized our business. Why? Because it's absolutely free. So we call our clients and say, hey, Alex, I'm just curious. Did you need the services of a plumber? No? How about an electrician? No? How about a landscaper? How about a painter? You can go down this list. And she's going to say, let's just 90% of the time, she's going to say no. Great. I just want to let you know that we have a free real estate concierge service at any time. When you think of any one of those services, reach out to us because we have people who are vetted out for you. Hey, Alex, really quickly, now that I have you on the phone, I'm just curious. Where's your headspace at with everything that you're watching or listening to when it comes to the market? She's going to say something if you as the agent just shut up for 2 seconds. All you got to do is just shut up, let her answer. And then that takes the conversation to a different path, it takes it on a different journey. But it's I think, a lot more effective than saying, do you want to buy or sell? Because she's going to say 95%. What's the chances of the stars aligning that day and her saying, yeah, I'm ready to buy. So by just offering this real estate concierge service, look, you're going to have hundreds of thousands of downloads on this podcast. There's going to be one person that's going to actually take this advice. And I know that one person will win because for the last 5 years, we get to call our clients. They pick up our phone. Because they're like, oh, I might need a plumber. Or, you know what? I know he's not going to, or she's not going to try to sell me. So it's just an easy way to get people to answer the phone, get them into conversations, which will hopefully convert into appointments, then which will lead into doing more transactions. There's that pathway to doing more deals, right?
So you sound like a great mentor. You believe in helping people. Who helped you? Who was your mentor?
For me, like my father and mother. I mean, my father was a taxi driver his whole life. My mother worked in a factory her whole life. And so when you grow, I grew up in an area called Rexdale. And so for people that don't know that area, that's kind of the area that you get told to put your windows up when you're driving through it. It has a stigma to it, but I was very sheltered because of my parents and my 2 older brothers. And so watching my parents go through what they were going through in terms of just working. I saw my dad not a lot growing up, and I don't mean that from a negative. I actually mean it from a positive, because what he did do very well is every day, and he still does it till this day, is like he'll always whispered in my ear, like, I love you. And you are enough. Hence why, for somebody who's watching,
I love
somebody
that.
who, thank
I
you,
journal
I appreciate
that a
it.
lot.
I appreciate that. That's awesome. And that's why I think we're all kindred souls in that sense. What I heard a lot was, you are enough. Like, don't worry, you're gonna figure it out. What they're saying at school, I see all the F's you're getting. Don't worry, you just haven't figured out what you're good at. So in a
smart parents to understand that.
And they were very uneducated in the formal sense. My dad had a grade 8 education in India. My mom had a grade 4 education. My mom is the human calculator till this day, just very sharp with math. But watching that work ethic, it mentored me from afar, right? There wasn't really a lot of sit down conversations. Like, I don't even think my parents ever spoke about the birds and the bees to me. Like none of those conversations were had at my house. Not that there's anything wrong if they should or shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
But then growing up, I had two mentors in the car business. I had a guy who his family right now probably is like top 1 or 2 in the country in terms of the car dealerships they own and the revenues they bring in. For some reason, he took a liking to me, took me in like a son, took me under his wing. And then in real estate, you know, the luck of the draw, I got mentored by a guy who was in the business at that time for about 25 years, took me under his wing, and I became kind of his right-hand man. He passed away tragically almost 6 years to the week, I think. And so he really took me under his wing when it came to real estate. Because in car sales, I had a little bit of a pushy way at times. Because in the car business, you might need to be that because you only have a small window. Because somebody comes and sees a car on a Saturday, they're buying in the next 7 days. Real estate doesn't work like that, right? We all know that the journey of a home buyer or a home seller could take 6 months. And so he really taught me how to have a little bit more patience in the process of a transaction.
That's huge.
I think mentorship I think it's the number one thing that anybody who's 22 or 72 should be looking for because success leaves clues, right? Like if you guys want to have the biggest podcast, the truth of the matter is you're not the first person who's podcasting. Someone else has done very well, right? And luckily for podcasters, there's thousands of people who have done really well in podcasting. Not to say that you have to do everything that they do, but just watch.
For sure.
Listen.
We don't need to reinvent the wheel.
One of the best sayings I've ever come across is success leaves clues. Because now it's just our job to pick it up. So if you're an agent right now, first year or 10th year, maybe you're somebody in their 18th year and who's just having a little bit of trouble in today's market, go speak to somebody who's been in this type of market in the past. Anybody who's been in the business for 20 years plus, you've already seen markets like this. It's your job though to ask that person, and that person might say, get out of my face. The office is closed. I don't want to speak to you. Now, you as that real estate agent who's going through a problem, are you going to quit? Or are you going to knock on someone else's door? And maybe you have to knock on 7 doors before someone says, come on in. Let me talk to you a little bit. Here's how you figure it out. Or here's a strategy that I would use.
Definitely. In the words of Kris Jenner, if they keep saying no, you're asking the wrong people.
Kris Jenner, that's keeping up with the Kardashians.
Or yeah, I guess she's a Kardashian now. I don't know what she is, but
she's very relatable.
You obviously have a ton of knowledge and have been in this industry for a while. And while we're on the topic of mentorship and growth, how did you get into realizing you loved helping, sharing, teaching others in the industry? Because you've built that out in a big way.
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. I think it happened organically. You sit down with people, you give them some advice, and then they actually go and do something with it, and then they come back. It's like a child, right? Like, look, I passed, or look, I was able to jump over the fence. And you had maybe a 0.00001% part in it, that became like a drug to me, right? I got really addicted to it. I enjoyed it. I also do believe that I suck at 99% of things. Like what our boy Chris is doing behind the 1s and 2s right now, like I couldn't do any of that, right? Laura's a great speller. Like she can spell very well. Alex is amazing at, videographing and I suck at English. Like I'm not even sure if that's a word, but there's like 2% of things that I'm really good at, and sales is it. Like this is all I've done. I never had a job at a pizza place. I never had a job at anywhere else. I was always selling stuff. And so then watching people take my advice, it's a drug that I just want to get more and more. And like I cannot do enough of it, if that makes sense. I could have, today one of our staff members, he's going back to Ireland, and he's a really critical part. He's been a critical part of our organization for the last 2 years. I love this guy. And first thing in the morning, that's the news I got. But I'm here with you now, and after I'm going to go shoot some more content. Like there's not really much that can throw me off when I'm actually helping and mentoring someone else. And so you just want to do more of it. And then
It
here's
fills
something.
your cup, it sounds like.
Sorry?
It really fills your cup. It fills your cup.
Oh, I love that you said that because we say that a lot around here. Like and that's why I think it's important that you got to fill your cup first.
Yeah.
Because how could you fill someone else's if yours is not even overflowing? You actually have to have an overflowing cup, right? Like, hence why I think I highly recommend starting every morning, like, right? Like, how good do you feel when someone hugs you and kisses you and says to you, you know what? Like, you have amazing hair, Kelly, and like your eyes are just so beautiful, Christina. You feel good when someone compliments you. But what if in the mirror you did like, you know what, Jas? You like, I know how much you're gonna go through today, but I love you. I really do love you. And then like feel that feeling. Now, if your cup is full, you have a good chance of possibly filling someone else's cup, right? And so I think it starts with yourself every single morning, right? I have no idea what the other question was, so you might have to bring me back
full
to
of
that.
Gratitude, like
you
it's
took
like
me there.
Yeah.
It's the attitude of gratitude, right?
Yeah.
Like when you're having a bad day, I think the easiest thing to do is just remind yourself, and you can get there quickly. That's the nicest thing, right? And somebody might say, well, Jas, like I heard your bio and everything that Kelly said at the start, and there's you have no. First of all, I don't care where you are, and if you could listen to this right now. If you're in your car, you're taking your dog for a walk, or you're on a treadmill right now, or you're watching at home on YouTube, maybe on a 70-inch screen, come on. You got a lot to be grateful for, right? We need a little bit of perspective. Like, man, if you have access to running water, like, okay, I know I'm taking it to the extreme, but for somebody who's saying I have nothing to be grateful for, we got to go to the extreme because you're being extreme. So I'm going to match your extremism, right? And so if, as long as you can start with gratitude, what starts to happen is that the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, gives you more of that. That's why it's so important to start with everything that you already have, because then the law of vibration starts to take effect and starts to actually do its thing, which will bring you more of what you're thinking and feeling about. Now, unfortunately, what most people do is they think and feel of things that they don't want.
Focus on the lack.
Right? I don't want these bills. I don't have enough business. And the universe doesn't know the difference between what's good and bad. And so it says, okay, here's more of that. Right. And so if you can just flip that, and I think the easiest way to do that is who you surround yourself with. Like if you surround yourself with 5 negative people, 5 people who are demotivating, 5 people who are always down, you have a really good chance of being number 6. But on the flip side, if you hang around 5 people that are inspiring, 5 people that are positive, 5 people that speak about gratitude, well, then you have a really good chance of being number 6 there as well.
Yeah. Being positive for sure.
Definitely. So where did you pick up on all of the mindset? Was that ingrained in you as a child, or is that something you've grown as you've gone through tougher times or positive times?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think I would probably sway to saying that 75% of it is DNA. Like, I don't know how scientifically DNA works and stuff like that, but like, I just know my father and mother just didn't have time for that nonsense. Like, and like when you see your parents pinching pennies on the bed, like my father used to, like there was no Apple Wallet stuff back in the days when my dad was driving taxi, right? Like, so he would bring home cash and he would give it to my mom and she would count it. And I remember I remember when loonies came into play and they had a little cup and that's where they would put their money, and you watch this happening. But they were so happy. Like they weren't fighting with each other, not that I have 2 older brothers, so you have 3 boys in the household. Like we broke a lot of shit, and so we got into a lot of trouble at home. But I think it was just watching them and how happy they were, and they tried. Like my father and mother probably went on like 1 date in their life outside of home because they were just in that immigrant kind of lifestyle, right? So you watch that happen, and then it was really just watching the 2 mentors, because that was the first time, especially in the car business. His name's Paul Policaro. Big shout out to him. It was the first time that I saw real wealth. And when I heard the story of them starting in a trailer and now having, I don't even know, they probably have like 17, 18 dealerships or something like that. They're all in the top 1 or 2 in the country. To see what freedom he had and how many people he was able to employ, how many people he was able to help. And not that he was necessarily happier because of the money, but I think that was the first time I realized, oh, you're supposed to do what you're very passionate about, and then the money follows. Where I think people got it twisted on social media is that you're supposed to go chase money. Yeah. But money doesn't work like that, in my opinion, and from what I've seen from successful people, is that when you're doing something that you're absolutely in love with doing, you're going to be hard to compete against because it never feels like work to you. So you'll wake up much earlier than most people, and you'll go to sleep much later than most people because you're doing something that you actually enjoy. And then the marketplace, consumers and clients will reward you because he or she, whoever brings the most value to the marketplace will always have a higher income because you're actually making things better or quicker. Hence why we have the Jeff Bezos and the Elon Musks of the world, because they just bring more to the marketplace. And so I think it was, to you, Kelly, it was a mixture of DNA and then surrounding myself with 2-3 people that they also wouldn't take my shit for too long. Like if I was complaining, they wouldn't my parents didn't beat me if I complained or something. And these guys didn't kick me out of their workplaces, but they didn't let it last for too long. It was like, all right, dude, you're going to get a day. Like, go sulk. You didn't sell some cars today. You didn't do well in real estate. Yeah, we're in a bad market. No problem. Go home, take the day. If I came back with that same attitude, they're like, this doesn't make sense. Buddy, the sun came up. Like, what are we doing here? Yeah. It's time. Let's start the process of gratitude, and then you'll start to lead into more positivity.
Yeah, let it go.
You gotta let it go.
Yeah, let it go.
I think it's a poison, right? The complaining, which really is taking bandwidth from you actually taking action. Like people are complaining about this red government, and then there'll be a blue government, and then there maybe be a new reddish orange government. Like, and people are like, I'm going to leave if this guy becomes prime minister. Bullshit. Nobody ever leaves, right? People just like to complain.
Just like all the Americans said they were going to leave the States if Trump won.
And before that, Christina, they said that if there's a black president, I'm out.
Yeah.
Nobody left when Obama became president. And then they said the same thing about Trump. But it's the complaining that takes up the bandwidth in the head, which I personally believe you should be using all that bandwidth and getting more of what you want, but you got to stop the complaining. And I think the comparing as well, like she has more than me, she's better looking, he has more than me, he's better looking, all that nonsense. Look, you got what you got, you got what you don't have. And so now it's just a matter of focusing on what you can actually control. And that's the daily efforts of putting out content, calling people, putting in offers, meeting people in person, meeting, people online. And that's how you kind of generate more business.
100%.
So you mentioned, sorry, Kelly, did you have something?
You go for it, girl.
So you mentioned, I'm going to skip a few things. We have a whole thing here, but you segued it into crappy market. So right now you're mentoring people, you're hearing it from the streets. What are you like, what lead generating tactics do you recommend for people to be doing in this type of market? We did touch on talking to people, touching base with them 17 times, but what's the message, or what are you advising agents to say to their clients right now?
Well, look, I think number one is from the highest viewpoint. When you think about generating leads and the top of the funnel, it needs to be in and around meeting people in person and meeting them online. And so when I say online, that's the stuff that you're doing on social media. Now, the other little couple of tactics I'll give the people that are listening and watching, that doesn't mean that you're going to get business right now. So I think first you have to have the right mindset.
As well as navigating the conversations right now.
With the clients. Yes, for sure.
How are you advising people to navigate those conversations?
Yeah. So in terms of the mindset first, though, as an agent, I hope that you didn't spend all the money you made in the last 2-3 years, because if you did, then I apologize, but you're supposed to be going through what you're going through, because this is business, meaning that if you didn't put away money for a harder time, then you were just ignorant to the fact that business goes up and down. It's just you have to go through the process. And so right now, something that you can do tactically is look at your expenses. I'm not telling you to go completely on the defense. There has to be a little bit of defense. I think we should be spending 80% of our time on the offense. And I'll talk about generating leads and navigating conversations with clients. But the defense being like, can you cut down some of the expenses? Like, look, I was speaking to an agent not too long ago in my office, and she mentioned to me that she was having trouble in the market, and she was having trouble like on her credit card. 2 weeks later, I see on social media, she's like on vacation. Like, what are we doing? Right? Like, I cancel the vacation, but it would have cost me $500. Better than spending the lose the 500.
You're gonna spend more on that vacation.
You're gonna spend way more than that. You know what I mean? Adds a couple of zeros, right? And so I think you have to have the right mindset that this type of market, we will get out of it. We always have, and we always will. It just takes a little bit of time. In fact, this type of market should have happened 2 years ago. COVID just delayed everything, right? Every 10 years you have a dip. 10 to 11 years, you have a dip. This market was a little frothy, maybe for 12, 14 years. And so it was just a matter of time. And so as an agent right now, have the mindset of going a little bit on the defense, start looking at your expenses. Conversations with clients, the truth, which is, in my opinion, if you're speaking with a seller, depending on which area you're in, if you don't need to sell, don't sell. If you have to sell, sorry, you have to sell. But have the conversation, because a lot of sellers that we're speaking to are like, oh my God, I've lost $300,000. I'm like, what? Can you show me how you lost $300,000? Well, my seller, my neighbor, I apologize, back in February 2020 sold it for X, and now I can only sell it for Y. Yeah, but you bought it for, Z, which was a lot less than what we're selling it for now. And yeah, you missed the peak, like trying to time the market, which is, everybody talks about, you can't time the market, you got to put time in the market. You just can't time it. So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I think if you don't need to sell, let's not sell. Home buyers. I personally think in a lot of markets right now, there are some deals. Like, you're just not competing against other buyers in every single market. And so you might be able to take advantage of that. Now, if you're worried about the carrying costs, then I don't think you should be buying right now, because you are going to have to stomach this higher cost of borrowing. Know that you can use a strategy of like maybe getting a 2-year fixed mortgage, and then in 2 years refinancing it at a lower rate. I personally think that the rates are going to be lower. They're not going back to the 1.99 stuff. Like, that was, I don't think we're going to see that ever again until some other thing comes along, like a lockdown or something of that sort. But for investors, the savvy ones, now really is the time in certain markets again, especially in the pre-con world, because there's a lot of developers that need to get to that final threshold to get construction financing. And so they're giving away incentives, probably close to what people paid for these condos 3 years ago. So there's a lot of compelling buying opportunities. Every situation's a little different. We as agents need to do the one exercise that salespeople do, and that's pick up the phone on a consistent basis. And so again, if you're driving, you can't see what I'm doing. That's picking up the phone and calling people. And one way of doing that is the real estate concierge service. The second way is just invite them to educational events, because I have some news for the public that's also listening and the real estate agents. Nobody really knows what's going to happen with the market. We all have our thoughts and our ideas. This is 19, almost 20 years in the business. I still don't really know. I don't even think the Bank of Canada knows what they're doing. The government, so whoever we're waiting for doesn't really make sense. Why do I mention that? Because as a real estate agent, your job is to educate people. Bring on Christina and Kelly to an event and have them speak about their opinions on the market. Bring on an independent mortgage broker. Maybe bring your broker of record, who she might have 30 years in the business, 30 years experience in the business, and she might be able to speak about the dips and the highs in the market and strategies on how to invest. Bring on other real estate lawyers. Like there's just a plethora of topics that you can have at these educational events. But what it does is gets people in a room, you talking, and you might have 50 people that register. I think we've done a little over 642 events in my 19 years. Okay.
Wow.
Educational, in-person and online webinars. So both of them, we have a lot of data. 50% of people will show up on who registers. So you have 50 people who register, 25 will show up, 2 people will do a deal within 90 to 120 days, like clockwork. Now, the 2 deals might not be what you're looking for. You might be looking for more, just do more events. And what happens is you'll start to have people who do joint ventures. They'll invest into a pre-con. They'll invest into multiplexes. You'll get topic ideas from other people. This is where you should
creating community.
That's what it is, right? Mm-hmm. And so generating leads for me, the conversation has always been the same. In 19 years, the only thing that I've added in 19 years is social media. Mm-hmm. Because it didn't exist when I started, right? And so, I don't really look at it as social media as much as I look at it as just content. So that's the only thing. But the 3 pillars that I think every agent needs to focus on when things are amazing and when things are not good, just stick with this. Educational events, phone calls to your client base, and content. And I think you need to be doing a video a day, like 1 video a day. Put it out there. If you're at 0 right now, it becomes easier. If you're doing 7 already a day, great, do 8. Just do more because you get more shots at it. Like, you mentioned, Christina, you're going to the gym. Mm-hmm. Okay. It's probably better to do 14 push-ups than 12. Right?
No, absolutely.
Right. So video to me is the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Do more. Your 15th video will probably be better than your 6th video. Mm-hmm. Your 18th podcast is probably a little bit better than your 2nd podcast.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? And so that's everything, right? And so I think those are the 3 things that agents need to stick with: educational events, producing content on a daily basis, and phone calls. Look, you can throw in the Facebook ads and the Google ads and go nuts. And I know most agents think that's the sexy stuff. The problem, in my opinion, is that agents haven't even got their CRM figured out. Yeah. So if I open up someone's phone and then look at their CRM online, there's a massive discrepancy. And the massive discrepancy is that not everybody in the cell phone is in the CRM. Makes absolutely makes no sense to me, because we have the one product and service that everyone needs. And so as long as you put everybody in your cell phone into your CRM, you can send them emails, you can make these phone calls. Even if they don't buy, sell, or invest with you, that's not the game plan. Who gives a shit? Like, if they never buy from you, who cares? It's the people that they know. The average person knows 200 people. So as long as you have 200 people in your CRM, your network now is 40,000. And so if out of 40,000, right, let me work with the smaller numbers. Out of the 200 people, your target should be 10%. That's 20 deals. For the GTA, that's a pretty good business. 20 deals, right? At each deal at 20,000. So, I mean, if you're not doing the most fundamental thing, which is CRM, sending emails, we do a 40-point touch system where we email, phone call, educational events 40 times a year to each client, which right now actually gets us approximately, so my team of 62 agents, we do a little over 700 transactions a year, but the core, myself, Laura, Tyler, and Luke, 4 of us, we do about 225 approximately. That all comes from our CRM. It's actually not even doing a video and someone saying, I want to buy a house. That's not how the social media stuff works. What it does, social media just brings more credibility and authority to the conversation with people in your CRM.
Agreed. That's how awesome. I feel about the podcast.
You guys are, I'm so excited for you. Thank because, you. We were mentioning it off air. I think I have like 222 episodes. It's my favorite thing to do because you get to meet cool people. Yeah. And the amount of content that you can take out of this, which you guys are doing already, but the doors that it opens, like you just never know who hears you on a podcast. And then when you step outside here downstairs and they're like, oh my God, Kelly, I just saw your podcast. Like, it's a cool feeling, right? And you're teaching people something, and hopefully you're inspiring home buyers, home sellers, and investors to take action. And maybe you're inspiring a real estate agent. Doesn't matter. Whoever you're inspiring, you did your part, and you'll always get rewarded for it.
Thank you.
100%.
Yeah.
I would love to touch on one piece. You talked a little bit in all of this, but investing, investors, opportunities. How did you get into investing, and what's your journey been in that space, and how do you enjoy working with investors? I'd love to dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, so I think I'll take your the last part of your question first. For me, working with investors is the biggest white space that exists in our business, by far, hands down, because trying to go after people who are listing their home and selling and buying a home, I get that was the 80s and the 90s. And the only problem with that now is that those people only want to transact on average once to every 5 to 7 years. So you're chasing someone who's possibly only going to transact once to every 5 to 7 years. Cool thing with an investor is that he or she looks to transact 5 to 7 times every year. Because they get hooked on the best crack in the world, which is investing into real estate. I don't think it's the only way to create wealth, but it's a very, very passive and easy way to start to create wealth. They want to do it as many times as they possibly can. It's just a matter of getting over the hurdle and the obstacle of financing. They need to get access to money. That's your job, to have them partner up with mortgage brokers, do joint ventures, whatever it may be, to help them there. The other thing is that they generally hang out with people that are like them. So when they invest in their first income property and they're at a cocktail party, they start to talk about it. They also speak about, oh my God, I had this crazy, good-looking Indian guy come to my house, and that's me, by the way, come to my house. I asked about listing the property to the agent, but the agent said, no, I don't think you should list. I think you should refinance and keep this property, and then we can go buy another one. That story they tell to their friends. And then their friends are like, whoa, hang on. Like, is this a way that you're getting out of the rat race? Which every single person in this room wants to get out of. We all try to get out of the rat race. And so that's why investors, and most people who are listening as agents right now are like, well, I don't have these investors. Here's the thing. They're in your phone. They don't even know that they could be investors. 98% of the people in our province, in our country, are blue collar workers. Like, they don't even know that they can invest. And I actually used to think that most investors are in ivory towers in downtown Toronto, but that's not how it is. They're just regular Joes and Janes. And so what I would highly recommend is start educating your client base on investing into real estate, because that target market will feed you for life. Second part that comes out of working with investors is that they don't look at you like a salesperson. They look at you like a consultant and an advisor. And so I'll be sitting with a couple and they'll tell me about the GICs they have, the mutual funds they have, the money that they have under their pillows. And then later on, one of them will text me and say, I didn't want to tell you in front of my partner, dude, I got another 70 grand in this account. What can I do with it? Because they're not thinking of you as a salesperson. They also will give you the peripheral business, meaning, hey, Jas, I needed to also have you help my niece with her first condo. Can you help my nephew sell his house? So you pick up on all that peripheral business. I'm not here telling agents don't work with sellers and home buyers. Just don't target them. Target the person that you're trying to help with creating wealth, and you'll get, again, fed for life. How it started with me is that I just saw somebody in my neighborhood, an older Italian guy, who was cutting the grass of like 6 houses. And then in the winter, he was shoveling the snow of 6 houses. And I'm like, what the hell? This guy, like, why does he own 6 houses? Like, it makes no sense. He lives in all these houses. Got to talking to him. He's like, no, I rent them out. And this probably started happening around 17, 18 when I was just going into car sales. And then in car sales, I started to meet more people who own homes and rent them out. And I was like, oh God, like, do you gotta buy these and then renovate them and then sell them? They're like, buddy, we never sell our houses. we do this boring stuff. And I was like, okay, so what is that? It's just buying and holding. That was actually one of the other main reasons why I got into real estate. I thought going to a REIA was, they were going to teach me how to invest into real estate. I didn't know, I didn't put it all together until later. I told you, I'm not that smart. And so I then started to understand that, oh, okay, here's another way to create wealth. Buy homes, never sell them, and rent them out. As I say never, there's obviously times where you might need to liquidate a little bit, move things around in your portfolio. I'm actually going through that right now where I'm considering getting rid of some of my condos. I also still till this day do the boring stuff now, which is buy and hold through pre-construction condos.
I was going to say, what is your
mine is
pathway?
pre-construction condos, as well as just like income properties, like I call them the Brampton special or the Durham special. I have a unit upstairs and a unit downstairs. But my portfolio sways a lot more towards pre-construction because of the reasons of, number one, I have access to developers that are going to give me first access pricing. Number two, I like the staggered deposit. I don't have to part ways with all my money at once. Number three, I also don't have to deal with much when the condo gets built. Like, I can't put this TV together. You know what I mean? Like, I can't hang anything on a wall. I'm not a handy person. So I need things that are very boring and very
low
easy.
maintenance.
Very, very low maintenance. And so I also like the fact that it's like one tenant that I just got to deal with. But like, as I mentioned, now I'm considering maybe liquidating a couple and get into the multiplex, because I really think the holy grail with investing into real estate for the regular person is multiplexes, because it's just not really going anywhere. Overall, investing into real estate is a very, very good idea for people. And like black and white, you have a lot of people coming and we don't have enough homes, period. Values will continue to go up. And as an investor, if you can just hold on to that, look, I have a lot of clients that have their 80th door, their 100th door. It's all fun and it's great. Who cares? Stop comparing yourself to those people. Just get one more. Because I wish my parents did. My parents, they did really well for my brothers and I, but they never took action in getting that next property, which would have been an income property. They were taught by somebody at the bank, you pay your mortgage down as quickly as possible, get lines of credits to buy other shit, like dumb shit, and then invest your RSPs with us. Because the bank had a vested interest, and so does the government. It was never in the vested interest of my parents. And so they also didn't get the education. But if they just bought one more back in 93, they would have cut it. They could have bought something for $100,000. It would have been worth 2.5 million now, right? And then goes on and on. We have thousands upon thousands of stories. So the whole buy and hold is, for me, the easiest way not to try to be Nostradamus. Like, you don't need to really forecast shit. Clients ask me all the time, what's going to happen? On average, every decade in the GTA specifically, values are going to double. So you're telling me my $1.2 million today average is going to be worth 2.4 million? Yeah. But remember, gas is going to be $7 and bread's going to be $27 because the silent killer. For once now, everybody says the word inflation. 5 years ago, nobody even knew what inflation was, right? Like, now finally, because of what's happened in the last 2-3 years, people understand. And so if the only way to protect yourself against inflation, there's 2 or 3 ways. Number one is that you own a business, because the business can start to increase the pricing of the services, right? So our boy Chris, if he's the owner here, for example, he could just charge a little bit more as inflation goes up, and he can kind of protect himself. And the second way is with real estate, because as values go up, your mortgage still gets paid down, and you're protecting yourself against the rising costs of everything else around you.
For
Definitely.
sure.
Love that. I like your perspective on pre-construction condos. It's always interesting when you speak to investors and investor-focused realtors. Recently, we had Sahil on, and his focus is very much anti-pre-con. So I like to hear your perspective as well. Personally, as an investor, I've gone both ways, and I see the value in both. But I know the different strategies, everyone has their own take on.
100%. And I know Sahil Jaggi, I think you're talking about. Yeah. Awesome guy.
Yeah.
It's really each to your own, right? Like
Yeah.
I don't have the time to be driving around like how he does in terms of, because that's his niche, right? He'll go around, I think it's like Young and Egg or something, if I remember, Young and Finch or something. And he'll look for those kind of properties. I also don't know what I'm really looking for in terms of renovating it. I tried to, it was probably about 14 years ago. I tried to be the general contractor of the basement that I was making in my own home. And I said, I'll never do this again. It was the worst decision I made. I was trying to save some money. Like the Indian immigrant it came out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
But
I
you
was
spent more.
Yeah. Oh my God, did I ever? I could have just focused an extra 10 hours on my work and made a lot more money, right? And so for me, the pre-con stuff is easy. I can look at a floor plan. I know it looks at, I also understand the downsides to it, right? Like condos right now, somewhat in certain markets are taking a little bit of a hit, right? They're also not going to appreciate, if you just look like compare apples to apples, they're not going to appreciate as much as a single family home is, right? And so, but for me, it's the easy way because I just got to deal with that one tenant. I don't have to get the mortgage. I didn't even mention that earlier. Like, you don't have to deal with all that mortgage financing stuff for another 4 years. And right now, I think that's important because if you can lock in something today and not need to get a mortgage for 4 years, that's fantastic because you don't need to get a mortgage at 6%.
Yes.
Absolutely.
No, but I appreciate too that you understand your strengths and you know you're not going to do the renovations and you know what type of property works for you and how you like to operate. So that's a good point as well.
And for everybody who's listening on it, not from an investing perspective, I think going all in on your strengths is a very, very underrated strategy because we were taught growing up that you should work at the things that you're not good at. In school, that's what they did.
Yes.
Right? Like, you need to learn how to do this better because we've realized you're not good. And they base that on a 90-day mark. Like every 90 days is, I think, when we got our report cards. So every 90 days, they made a decision on me if I was smart enough in something. That doesn't make sense. It's not enough time. Your sample size is not big enough. And then they would want us to try to fix that. Where I think you can hit massive, in business, for sure, massive grand slams and home runs, using the baseball analogy that we were all talking about earlier, is if you go all in on your strengths and like almost not even worry about your weaknesses, because in business, you can always hire around your weaknesses. The reason I like to have a lot of MBAs around me is because I'm not one. And there's a lot of value in having somebody who's systematized and smarter than you. Like, you should have a lot. Like, Laura's not the only one. I think there's a guy, George has his MBA. We have more. And I think that's important because they fill your gaps, right? But you need to be the person who goes all in on your strengths and you'll hit massive home runs and grand slams.
Speaking of strengths, before we wrap it up, we do just want to hop back into the social media chat with you because obviously that's your jam. You are all into the social media, artist, the way you put it, content, the podcast, the book, your academy, your social media. When did you realize that was your thing? How did you get into social? How bad was your first video?
We got to pull it out, Alex. We got to find that first video somewhere because it was garbage. It took me hundreds of videos to get really comfortable. How it quickly started was my partner passed away, like as I mentioned earlier, and he was kind of the face of the company. He would be on the stage, very charismatic guy, really knew the business well, very comfortable in front of the cameras. When he passed away, it left a gaping hole in our business. And at that same time, I was starting to it's funny. Your brain will always find what it's looking for. So if you're looking for the good in things, it will find the good. If you're looking for the bad, unfortunately, it will find the bad. At that time, I was just watching some videos of a guy named Gary Vee. And I'm like, this guy's a little bit like, he's a little crazy, man. And I'm watching his stuff and he's talking about videos and content and podcast. I was like, what the hell is a podcast? Search up the word podcast. I'm like, oh, this is an audio platform. So I don't need the cameras on. Like, okay, because I was scared shitless of the cameras. So when people tell me that, I really understand. I wasn't born with being like comfortable in front of the cameras. And then I realized it was free, like podcasting. I was like, whoa, this is awesome. I can speak about what I want to speak about. I can throw an F-bomb here or there. Nobody can turn me off, like shut me down. I'm going to do this podcasting thing. I started podcasting back in mid 2018, started having conversations like you girls are having and realized that Oh, if I record it on video though, I'll get certain clips out of it that I can put on my social media, stuff that everybody's doing now. And I got a podcast episode interview with Ryan Serhan in New York. And the team was like, buddy, you got to put this on camera. But if you watch that recording, it's 37, 38 minutes. I never look at the camera ever because I was so nervous. But when we came back, got all those clips, I said, all right, let me try to kind of start talking to the camera more. Am I comfortable with it? And over time, I just started to get more and more comfortable. I use the analogy of driving a car. The first time you got in a car, it was like 10 and 2, fix the mirrors, put the seatbelt on. And now you do all that subconsciously while you eat, on a phone call, put your makeup on, shave your beard, all that, right? And so it gets easier over time. But I just started to realize how much business I was getting out of it. And again, it's not direct necessarily. It's when I call. So in my training academy, I do live phone calls to my clients. And so people get to watch and listen. So because some might say that I'm not in the business. So I'm like, let me just, there's a little chip on my shoulder as well. I'm human. Let me show you that I'm still in the business. And clients will pick up, oh my God, Jas, same thing that you were speaking about, Christina. Oh my God, I was just watching your video. Oh my God, I see your webinars. I can't believe it's you calling me. Now, as a sales guy, that's pretty cool. Like, I know whatever I say, I can kind of navigate this conversation and they actually want to hear from me. And so when that started happening about 3 years, 2 years in, it took 2 years until I really started to see the benefit of it. Big shout out to Laura, because she was always down and saying, you got to keep doing this. It's going to work. It's going to work. It's going to work. Now, she's human as well. Easier said than it's easier to tell somebody to do it. But even her at the start, she had a problem getting started as well, like everyone else. But I'm 13,000 hours of video now that I have in our Google Drive. If you're starting out, to compare yourself to me or to even to Kelly and to Christina, 18 episodes in, but also other videos, it's actually an insult to them, to me, and yourself, because we're just a little further along the journey. And so if you're watching and listening saying, I can't talk like him, God knows you don't need another Jas in this world, right? We don't need another Kelly. We don't need another Christina. Like, we have one of those. We need to see you. Like, we need to see you. Your uniqueness is your authenticity. Like, you want to be authentic. It's your uniqueness. It's your insecurities that make you unique. And you'll come to realize nobody's really thinking about you as much as you think they're thinking about you.
Definitely. That was beautiful.
Yeah, that's
Christina,
nice little bow.
You want to throw the rare roundup out?
Sure. I'll do the rare roundup. Favorite GTA neighborhood?
Favorite GTA neighborhood? I'm going to say, we were actually just talking about it earlier, Koreatown.
Oh, new
we haven't got that one yet.
Yeah. Okay. Favorite fast food on the go?
It has to be a burger. It has
Do you
to
have
be
a
burger.
specific chain?
Oh, I'm gonna say McDonald's. I just grew up with it. It's McDonald's for me.
And in your opinion, what makes an agent rare?
I think their ability to build relationships. Unfortunately, the ticket in real estate is so large that so many people get attached to the income and they become very transactional. But I think what makes an agent rare is the one that is building relationships long term, because I'm living proof of I still sell real estate to people I sold cars to 23 years ago. I sell real estate to people that I sold shoes with 27 years ago. And because I built those relationships, now there's people in my CRM that have become real estate agents / mortgage brokers, and now they're part of my training academy. So it's the same people that I continue to do business with. And the one that I think becomes most rare is he or she who has the most patience to build those long-term relationships.
That's awesome.
Oh, love that. Cherry
So
on top.
thank you again so much for joining us. You obviously have so many different ways for people to find you, but if someone's like, where do I find this guy? I need more of him. Where are we headed?
Just go to my YouTube page. It's Jas Takhar, Jastakar. I'm very easy to find. Google me as well. I mean, figure me out. I'm not that hard to find.
Amazing. Thank you so
Perfect.
much for being on the pod.
Thank you for having me, girls.
Thank you.
If
Yay.
you're listening and watching, as we had said at the beginning of the episode, please like, rate, review, subscribe, all that good stuff. It would mean the world. And we'll see you next time.
Peace. Thanks so much.